really want to have a 5-second delay on this milk and cookie parade? And he goes, yes. And I go, why? Because you never know when somebody says, look, here comes the effing float. And I'm going, yeah, you're probably right. Because you get near a microphone, it could happen. So that's why on all the live shows like the Emmys and the Grammys the other night.
Carson? Johnny Carson?
No, Johnny didn't have a,
No.
oh no. He was, go ahead.
They did it a
Early.
3-hour,
Early.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he'd be edited. Oh, yeah. Well, since you brought that up, Johnny Carson's show would tape around about 4 or 5 o'clock. And then we would go into an edit room and clean everything up. And then we'd feed it to New York and go from there. And there was some really funny stuff that happened. I don't want to go down too much memory lane or whatever. Okay, so here's the next one. I don't think if you remember about this one. Dramas cost about $5 million an episode for a 1-hour show. Okay, time flies, and so at that point we had a president of the network that said, "This is way too much money to spend on these dramas. We're going to put Jay Leno in at 10 o'clock." Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I hear the groans, right? Well, he's the sweetest guy on earth, I'm telling you. Well, let's rewind with Johnny. Johnny was the shyest guy on earth. If he saw a tour in the hallway when we were there, he would basically hide, or he'd go to the basement or whatever. He did not want to be. He was just. But once he got in front of the camera, it's a whole different story. Jay Leno, hi, how are you? You know, he'd see him in the hallway, buy him ice cream, ride his car, whatever. And by the way, speaking of cars, that guy had a trillion different cars. He would show up with a Stanley steamer or something from World War II, a sidecar, motorcycle. I mean, he had a ton of stuff. But anyhow, that's an aside. So it was decided to put him on at 10 o'clock instead of these dramas. How do you think that went over? You guys all remember it. It did not go over real big. And then we had Conan on at 11:35.
Oh, geez.
He was funny enough, he was, but things he could, it was really not a creative decision, it was an economic decision, okay? Because at that time, I think we were still owned by General Electric, and so, of course, everything was economic. I think that was the time, I don't think it was Comcast. Anyhow, what happened is it just didn't work out, but the thing that really did it is all the networks have affiliates, okay? They're not owned by the network. The network owns each network owns about maybe 10 or 12 different stations around the United States, okay? They're limited to what they can own. And then each network has maybe about 200 affiliates. Well, prime time is the time that we sell the highest money for our clients, is prime time. Everybody's watching. The second highest time is the first 15 minutes of local news. And on the East and West Coast, it's 11 to 11:15. On the Midwest, it's 10 to 10:15. Of course, they go to bed early there anyhow, so who cares? But that's it. So, remember I told you about flow-through? Well, if nobody's watching Jay Leno, are they going to watch late news? It's not going through. So the affiliates just had an absolute stroke because they were losing maybe about a third of their revenue. And they went to, there's an affiliate committee, we talked about that, and they talked about this stuff. And by the way, when the pilots are shown, when they're selected and shown, they do go to the affiliates. And the affiliates kind of weigh in on not their final selection, but what's coming up and what they're going to be doing marketing for them. Now another one I'm talking about a little more is scheduling. It's very important, as I mentioned to you, that we go flow through. But we have a little term called connect the dots, a little cutesy term, where we want to have, and each network does this, you want to have the good numbers every Monday through Friday. Saturday's a giveaway. Everybody's in the Hamptons again, I think, or whatever, or something. Nobody's watching TV. That's why on Saturday night, prime time is reruns. Sunday night is another story. You got 60 Minutes, and right now, until recently, we had football, that sort of thing. The other one is, and you know who does this, is Nielsen, does the ratings. Live and die by the ratings. There's about 320 million people, maybe more, that live in the United States. There's about 130 million households in the United States. That's a small town, by the way, in China. It's a joke. And it's not you gotta erase that. And so anyhow, yeah, in fact, it was funny, a few years ago, as a professor, I was teaching in Shanghai, which is interesting. That's another story. Anyhow, the ratings are done in 50-minute increments. Pretty much, they know when people go to the bathroom, okay, or go make a sandwich. But it's very important that they analyze the ratings to the program for engagement, okay? And at one point, it used to be diaries, which everybody would lie about, you know, like, yeah, I'm asleep, but I'm watching Channel 2, whatever. But the people meters are absolutely amazing. And I have some very close friends of ours up in Oregon that are a people meter family. And they're on every TV set they got in the house. They got little cameras that watch them. There's all sorts of stuff that go on. I mean, it's really, they had to sign the contract. You know, if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. But they were willing, they're just husband and wife, professional couple, and they don't care.
Did they make a lot of money doing it?
No, you don't make a lot of money on it at all, but it was just, you know, to be a Nielsen family. And of the 320 million folks that are out there in 130 million homes, guess how many homes have a meter? Test question. Guess how many homes have a meter?
1% if you're lucky.
No, not even close. 14,000.
Oh, my God. And that's what they're based on?
Yeah, and by the way, I've seen all their stats and stuff, which is scary, because I'm not a mathematician in any way. But they're plus or minus like 1 or 2%, and they're that close. It really is good, yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. So pretty much that's the story about the mechanics of it. And I hope that's helped you. And I've got a quick handout here. And hey, Mike, would you help me with this?
Sure.
Just to go over this. One of the ladies had to leave early, and I gave her the handout. And so it's two sides to it. And this is a keeper. You can take it home with you. Okay. And it's two sides. The first one up, we'll go through this very briefly. It's just the structure of a broadcast network.
May I ask a question, please?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
May I ask a question before we start?
Sure.
When you talk about production costs
Yes.
for, say, a 30-minute series,
Yes.
does that 1 to 3 million include the salary to the actors?
Yeah, it's above and below the line. It's both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
above and
you.
below. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like $1 million per person for Friends. Whoa, that's way above the line. Okay. Yeah, basically it includes everything.
Okay.
And once again, remember well, let's do another money thing too. I'll give you that in a second. Does everybody got one? You need, Mike, you need any more?
No.
You know, so got some over there. It's interesting in the context of how the networks make money. Okay, remember, we pay a production company the license. And sometimes we meaning the network, I mean, there's no way in hell NBC could have paid that talent $1 million per person to do Friends towards the end of it. And Warner Brothers had to pony it up. And whatever deal they cut, I mean, whatever it works. So what happens is, the first time a show airs, okay, the very first time, it's a lost leader. How much does a normal spot go for on television? What do somebody want to take? Just a regular spot. 30 seconds, prime time.
Not on football or whatever.
No,
No.
Well, you know the Super Bowl's 5 million.
I know.
Okay, we're not gonna go there.
250 for 30
So how much?
250 for 30.
Yeah, about that, but $250,000, some plus minus. You know, whatever.
$50 on Wise Guys Cooking.
Yeah, that's, for you,
Well, that's
$11.95.
Yeah, but that's local, right?
That's fine, that's
That's
fine.
good.
That's true, that's okay, but that's,
Yeah.
what you know, that's what, you're doing the demographics for this area, so that's what it is. So, the first time out, so what you do, it's really easy, what you do is, how much you make for each 30, times how many 30s are in a show,
Right.
and that gives you the gross that you've made for the show, and that's usually less than the production cost, right? Could be could be $1 million or $2 less. The second time it airs is, remember, you've already paid for it once. That's when you make the money. That's when you get the money back. That's how this goofy business is. Okay, and you don't get a third. If you want to air it a third time, you got to pay another license fee. Okay, because that's just how that's how the industry works. So, I'll go through this one very quickly, the first one here, and then the second one, turn that one over. This one's golden for you. Turn this over on the back side. This is for you. This is for the writers, and this is for submissions and how the timing stacks up on submission process for free. I'm not gonna charge a dime for that. I give this to my students too, so. All right, so what we have here in the center of the universe, of course, is the program planning and scheduling department. Now, who do you think made this chart?
You.
No, program planning and scheduling. They're the ones there. And what that means is that it's that when we have a show that makes its run, it's 13 weeks. And by the way, let me talk about that for a minute. I should have thought about this. Let me give you a little stat. You can write this down. If you get a full order for a series, okay, full order, that's about 20 to 24 episodes. If you hear the word full, that's 20 to 24. If you hear the word standard, that's 13. That's a quarter. If you hear the term limited, that's 6. And where you normally see limited is usually over the summer. Normally. It could be other times. It could be, well, let me rewind on another one. The full season for TV is September through May. And during that time period, we have something called sweeps. Have you ever heard of those? And the network, by the way, the network doesn't do sweeps. The stations do the sweeps. The network supports the sweeps. And those sweeps are when they try and get the highest ratings possible. And the way you know you're in sweeps, you're watching TV, the local stations do something like Blood at 11, or something to get you to turn into the news, or left-handed plumbers on motorcycles at 11, whatever, strange stuff. I mean, really strange stuff. You know you're in the sweeps in, because all these weird things start coming up, because they gotta have the ratings go way up. When the ratings go up, then when they go to sell the next quarter, they got the high ratings, and they can get the higher prices. So the networks are the ones that support that. We don't care about it, because remember, we do all our selling from the upfronts, okay? So anyhow, when we go through this process, the program planning people want to be sure that they've got the program scheduled, are they running out of time, how many are left, and then any sort of sports, like NBC, we mentioned this earlier, NBC does the Olympics, and when the Olympics go on, everything else goes out the window. I mean, that's a whole different story. All right, so we got that, and they do all the planning, and the other one they do is what we call contingencies. Football game. Can we play it in the rain? Can we play it in the snow? Can it go long? Can it go short? Yeah. So they have to plan on what would happen in case it goes long, short, whatever, on what shows follow. Now, there's 1,000 years ago, you probably heard about what's called the Heidi incident. Anybody hear about that? Okay, one person did. I'll make it real quick. The Heidi incident was a show that was going to air on the East Coast at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. The football game wasn't over with. They cut away from the end of the football game to air the Heidi show.
Oh my God.
They blew the switchboard up.
I bet.
Okay, but on the West Coast, we're still watching. But on the East Coast, everybody was crazy. So that's never going to happen again. I think they had a public execution for that. Okay, but basically, it's those sort of things that we have to think about. Is it going to rain? Not rain? Is it going to snow? All sorts of stuff that's going to take place. Okay. So with that, and if you take a look down across the right side of this, basically the East Coast. East Coast is the center of the universe when it comes to advertising and sales. They work with the advertisers and they work with the ad agencies. Next one up is affiliate relations. There's about 200 and some stations, and that little arrow from network operations goes to those stations. When they get the information from scheduling, goes to network operations, they in turn tell all the stations what they're planning, how they're going to work, what's going to take place. Then there's the news department, and they're obviously a separate division. They have like Dateline and CBS is still 60 Minutes. I think 60 Minutes is still the longest running show on TV. I think it's been on for 50 years.
It's the
or something like
longest.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, we got NBC Sports. There's also a cable NBC Sports cable system. We have that too. Standards and practices, that's the one I just told you about. we don't want any mistakes. They're very upset because they don't want to get FCC involved, heaven forbid. And the biggest one is you want to get Congress involved. You just keep that away. The other thing here is what we call wild cards, breaking news, weather, disasters, illness. That's what I was just mentioning to you, that you never know when something's gonna happen and you have to be ready for it. Finance, those are the ones that do like the department budgets. It's the only way I can describe it. The bean counters, I hope nobody hears that thing, but that's the ones that are there. NBC.com, this has turned out to be our answer to streaming. It's not the final answer to streaming, but if you wanted to watch, if you didn't watch your show on real time when it aired, let's say Sunday at 8 o'clock, you didn't watch it, you recorded it, okay? Then you can watch it 3 days later, and if you're in Nielsen home, it still counts. If you didn't do it there, you can go to NBC.com and watch it streaming, or CBS.com or ABC.com. But they're not the same commercials. And you can't fast forward through them. God hates you. Okay? How many of you have recorded the show? You all have done it. How many of you have actually sat through commercials when you recorded the show? No hands better go up, right? So you got the button, you fast forward through. You can't do that with the .coms. They put different commercials in your stuff. The next one here is, and you can see where it goes to the viewers, next one up is business affairs. These are the ones that cut the deal with the development department, the creative people, on how much they're gonna pay for things. How much they're gonna pay the talent, how much they're gonna pay for the shows. The business affairs is a big deal. Research, that's amazing now. Research now is not just what goes on the air, but as I mentioned to you, watching a show 3 days. If you watch it on the 4th day, it doesn't count. But if you're Nielsen home, you watch it within 3 days, it does count.